I have a son who has a very rare genetic disorder called TBR1, and he is one out of 200 in the world. It was, and it's very isolating as a mom to see a child growing with some type of a disability, right? Celebrate the small wins. It will be a very, very sad, isolating life that you will live. So you have to learn how to celebrate those small wins.
Welcome to the Wheel With It podcast with your host, Devin. Let's get into the episode.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of Wheel With It. My name is Devin Wieters, and today we have Michelle. How are you?
How are you, Devin?
I am good. So tell us about yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I'm Michelle. I am currently an advocate here in Southern California, and I live in Huntington Beach. I've been working for an orthopedic company for over 20 years in medical sales. And about 11 years ago, I was a mother for the first time. And I have a son who has a very rare genetic disorder called TBR1. And he is one out of 200 in the world. So it's a very rare, it's a very small group of kiddos and actually some adults too with TBR1. So yeah, that's why I'm here to bring awareness to that.
So first of all, what is TBR1? Because I don't think I've heard of that.
So TBR1 is a genetic disorder that causes intellectual disabilities and developmental delays and all kinds of, developmental delays that you can find in a child. There is a spectrum that goes from, severe to mild, and there's when Drake, my son, my 11-year-old, found out that he had TDR1, he was about 8 years old, and he was only like 40. There were only 40 kids in the world with it. Now we are about 3 years in, and there's about 200 of them. And like I said, it's very rare. It causes some autistic traits. It causes, the developmental delays, speech disorders, and I can count so many other ones, ADHD, behavioral problems. So the majority of the kiddos, some of them are very on the mild side, some of them are more severe. And we're still trying to find out, like we don't even know what really it all brings because there's only 200 of kiddos. So
Is it like fatal, or is it just
no, no, it's not. So my son, this is an interesting case, and I didn't know this until about a month ago, Devin, is that there is a 76-year-old woman that just found out that she has TBR1. So she is the oldest one. Yeah, she's the oldest one on the team in the group. And now it's interesting too, is that we're finding that, here's the crazy thing about genetics is that these syndromes and these disorders, they are being found as the more genetics gets bigger and better and more elaborate, right? So if you got a genetic testing done before, I think 2021, you wouldn't know that you have TBR1 because they weren't checking for that syndrome. So I think that we're going to see more people coming in. And the other part of this too is that we are going to see the diagnosis a little bit sooner than we used to. So we used to see, because it started in 2021, we see some kids that are about my son's age, and that's when they were diagnosed. Some of them were diagnosed when they were 24 years old. Some of them were, I think it's about, there's people in all different ages here, but it just all depends on when you were diagnosed. And now we actually have these diagnoses coming in with 1 or 2 year olds. And so I honestly, like, it would have been great to know this when Drake was younger, right? But at the same time, I don't know that things actually change when you get this disorder because there's nothing that we can do, right?
I mean, and
We
he's
know
still young
that.
enough to where the therapeutic interventions will. I mean, it's better if you do it before 5, but I mean, even if you do it like
Mhm.
before 10, like they'll still have an effect, you know.
Yeah, we noticed delays right when, he was young. Like he was premature. He was in the NICU for a month. And at the hospital that we had him, they actually follow up on the kiddos. And these kiddos, if they're falling behind, they send you to certain things. So speech was one of the first things that we noticed. Speech and the ADHD, the hyperactivity, they were like one of the first things that we noticed about him. So we started early intervention before, like, I think he was 18 months old or two, because he couldn't eat right, he can speak. And so we started pretty young with him, but we didn't know what it was, right? And so as a mom, when you have a child that starts showing these delays, you you don't know what to do. You're so lost because you don't know where to go for help. Sometimes, some people sometimes will help you and you find out that there's an early intervention through your state. Sometimes people wait until they're older to try to start finding these helps that, these systems that can help you. And and it's very isolating as a mom to see a child growing with some type of a disability, right? My son, he doesn't speak correctly, so it's really hard for people to understand him. He doesn't read or write. He's 11, and sometimes these disabilities don't show, and that's where he is. And so as a mom, it's a hard thing to go through and not feel isolated, I guess, is kind of what I can say, is that isolation of not being able to understand and not being able to connect with other moms and other family members because you know that things are happening, but nobody wants to see it sometimes in the beginning. And so you keep it to yourself. You get in a way that it's hard. It's hard to put yourself out there and it's hard to talk about what is going on at the home.
So tell us about your advocacy journey and all of that because I know that very well. So tell us about your
Yeah.
advocacy journey and all that. So
Yeah. So, as a mom, right, you have a different experience than, and it will be interesting to see how it will be with my son once he gets older. Right now he's 11, so he's still, pretty young, but it's amazing how advocacy comes into play in this. I'm sure that your parents had to advocate for you with all
oh
their
yes.
might,
Yes.
and so it was
Luckily,
so
my
good to
public school system was very good, so it wasn't that hard on the public school front, but on some other fronts, it was. So
yeah, and that's great, right? And when you have a good school district, when you have, good IEPs and good people in your life, then things are easy. But I feel like things were pretty hard sometimes, as a mom. So through all the years so we started the advocacy when he was about 18 months old. I had to go find somebody who would help me give him the early intervention that I knew that he needed. But during that time, everybody was like, "Oh, so and so didn't speak until they were 5, so don't worry about it. You know, people just kind of play it like it's not a
Don't
big
worry about
deal.
it.
It's going to be okay. Yes,
Be-
yes, yes. You know why, Devin? Because they want you to they want to make you feel better. You know what I mean? So you're a mom, you see things that are happening. Your child's 3, they're not talking, and everybody's just trying to make you feel better about it. So they turn to you and they say, "No, it's going to be okay." It's just, and most of them are doing this out of the
Yeah.
goodness of their hearts. They want to make,
Yeah.
yes, very good intentions. But usually if you follow those good intentions, you're not going to get that early intervention that you need. So I started at when he was 18 months old. When he was 3, it was very apparent that he wasn't speaking. He had no words. And I packed him up. I had just had my other daughter. She was 4 months old. And we packed my son up because I heard that there was a speech therapist in Connecticut that could help. So we packed him up, me and my husband, and we went. And we were there for about a week, and it was great. Like, it was great because nobody had done what she did for him. And we had a program, and we came back, and we had an idea. And this was his very first diagnosis. It was called childhood apraxia of speech. And we came back and we knew exactly how we needed to tackle this. And we needed to find a speech therapist who had experience with childhood apraxia speech. And so that was my very first big advocating for my son. We went to Connecticut, we came back, we found somebody, but she was in LA, which is about an hour and 15 minutes from us. It could be 3 hours depending on traffic because California traffic is awful.
Yes.
But we
Oh,
started going, it was awful. But we started taking him there. My husband took him 2 or 3 times a week. And, things kind of started developing. And so, as a mom, you kind of go with the flow and things are happening and you know that there's an issue, but you don't know how to do this. And so for the past, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, people have really come to me to ask questions about IEPs, ask questions about insurance companies. How do you get insurance to pay for certain things? About, the state funded programs that you can have. And people they would navigate to me and always ask these questions. And so about 2 years ago, I said, you know what? I should be helping them more. And so I kind of came together and I started thinking everything that I did through the, 10 years that I had been with my son. What did I do? How did I become his best advocate? And then I came up with what I call Thrive, and Thrive is my program. And if you don't mind, I'll kind of explain. So really the T is, it's the teamwork, but it's like in a medical team. So you need to have, if your child has some kind of a disability, that it doesn't matter. And I called my kiddos, I called them complex instead of a special needs. I called them complex. And I said, he's a complex kiddo. He's my complex kiddo. And so when you have a complex one, you have to have that team around them. And so that was one of the first things that I did was bringing that medical team. So we found a good speech therapist. We looked for an occupational therapist that understood sensory processing disorder because back then it was quote unquote voodoo or people didn't talk about sensory processing disorder, you know? And then you find a developmental pediatrician who's going to help you with like ADHD and the developmental issues that they have. And then you find, the right person for, let's say physical therapy. So that is the team. That's the T in the Thrive. Then you go to age, and the age is pretty big, and that's the help systems that are out there that you're going to have to learn their language. One is the school districts, right? Knowing what an IEP is. There's so many other things that that comes along with the aid for the school districts. Then then you have to learn the language of insurance companies. That's another one. And so you need to learn this. And this, you're sometimes doing this with your kiddo and you don't know. And so you end up not using your insurance because you don't know how to use it. And it's, so we talk about that. I teach about that. And then the third one on the help systems is the state funded programs that they do have, and it is available to children depending on what kind of disability they have. And so, and then you go into R for Thrive, or the relationships that you build around you. So it's, your families, and how do you explain to the grandparents? How do you explain, a genetic disorder to an 8-year-old like I had to do with my daughter? How do you explain these things and bringing people together, the relationships that you build around your child and what it means to you to do that? And so we talk about that. That's the R. And then the I, which is very important, I call it the integration, the I, the me. As a mom, you have to take care of yourself, because if you're not well, your child is not going to be well. And so we talk about how to do that. How do you take care of yourself? How do you take some time? How do you take deep breaths? Because sometimes you're so into this whole life of, you know, advocating for your child that you forget about yourself. And so, and then you go to V, which is validation. And I love this one because it's about seeing the small wins. When you are in the situation, you got to remember that the wins are going to be small and they're going to come not every day. And so you have to hold on to those small little things so you can get through each day. Because if you don't celebrate the small wins, it will be a very, very sad, isolating life that you will live. So you have to learn how to celebrate those small wins. And then the E, which is for Thrive to end it, it's the expect a miracle. Because when you do all these things that we just talked about, the miracle will happen. You will become a good advocate for your child. You will see your child in a different light, in a different way, because you have learned how to appreciate those small wins every day. So
It's
that's Thrive.
amazing. Where can people get involved with the program?
Yes. So it was called Wisdom, the number 4, Complex Kids. And you can still find me like that on social media. But our website now has changed because I am doing some advocacy work also. So I'm an advocate and I'm helping other families advocate for themselves. And so it's called specialeducationconcierge.com. And that's where you can find me. But so along with the Thrive program, I also have this special education concierge program, which is you can hire me as an advocate and I will fight for your family. And you can also join what is my signature program, and I become the care coordinator for your child
That's
along with you.
amazing. Like, if there are
Yeah.
Medicaid waivers,
Yes. Well, I just help with, so I came up with this because a friend of mine was like, I just can't keep doing this and be a mom. And I said, I know. I've, it's hard. It's hard to do it for like yourself. And so she has a full-time job and she was like, Michelle, I just can't do it. Can I pay you to do these things? And I was like, okay. So what did we do? We put together this. So it was like, okay, who is your son's team? And then we realized that it was like her pediatrician. She had nobody else in the medical team. And I was like, okay, well, we gotta take care of that. So we looked into the area, we found a developmental pediatrician, we found a good speech therapist that had the background to deal with what he has, which is also childhood apraxia speech. That's kind of how we met. So we developed a team around her child. And then she's like, but then I'm having all these issues with insurance. And I was like, well, you have to submit it to insurance companies. You got to do, if they're out of network, you got to submit for out of network benefits. And so she's like, can you do it for me? And I was like, okay. So I did that. And then the state funded programs, it is Medicaid waiver for the kiddos. They don't need Medicare yet. But so, and then she's like, well, can you come and be our advocate too? And I was like, okay. So I created the signature program and really like you have interactions with me every week and we're going to go over who's the best team for you, how we're going to get you these programs, how we're going to get a good, strong IEP that I come in and we fix, we get good goals, we put the good things in place for an IEP to be followed. So that is my big program. And so I do a little bit of everything, but I figure that some moms are out there and they're working moms and they just don't have the time to do this. And sometimes, finding somebody who can do this for them is like life changing. So that's how I came about this.
And so, how do parents go about applying for a Medicaid waiver for their child? I know it
Uh-huh.
varies by state, but
It does. And so you have to go through your state. And here in California, it's called the regional center. And every state will have a different name, but it's
in
and
Virginia,
so
it's Community Service Board.
there you go. And this is something I do have. I don't know all of them by heart. I'm sorry, but I do have the information that I can send to people if they want to know. I pulled from every state what the website is that they can
Yep.
go to
And
get that.
if you need to check the website, I'm sorry. If you need to check the website in your state,
Okay.
there is a helpful website that you can go to do that. It's called
Yeah.
MedicaidWaiver.org.
Yes.
And it will
Yeah.
have all the state Medicaid waivers for every state listed. So it will at least point you in the right direction. Some of them, if you call the number, they'll say, go to your local community service board. I'm like, that doesn't help anything. So if it says that, then you can just Google community service board or whatever it's called in your state and your zip code, and that'll point you in the right direction. So,
Yeah. And I found that a lot of people they're actually once you find somebody that can like once you find the right place, they are usually pretty here in California at least, like when I was doing it for me and a couple of other people, like they're usually pretty helpful. They try to help you if you find the right place to do this. And so, we do that and we try to bring that on because and I didn't know about it until later on when my son was when we found this genetic disorder because you have to have certain things, you have to be affected in certain ways
yeah.
for you to get the Medicaid waiver.
And you have
And
to
it's
have
not every
documentation and all that,
Mhm.
whatever. So,
It's not just like my son has ADHD, so I'm gonna go and I'm gonna get Medicaid waiver. That's not how it works. There's a whole process that's involved in there. And usually what I found in a lot of the states is that the 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 organization that takes care of the early intervention is also responsible for this part of the Medicaid waiver and the other programs that they have. So here in California, they do give you respite care. And so you get so many hours a month for you to go to the store or do whatever it is that you need to do. And so they send somebody to take care of your child. They pay for it. They also pay for certain social events. So like my son used to go to horseback riding and he did it in a group and they paid for that. So for once a week for 4 weeks out of the month and they would do it and they paid for it. So there are a lot of things that are out there and parents just don't know about it. We just don't know.
Yeah.
So if your listeners are listening and they want the one thing that I've been doing lately, and I think that it's really been helpful for a lot of the parents out there, is I do an IEP review call. And so I will
Yeah.
so if somebody needs to look have somebody look at their IEP, we talk about it, we kind of go through it, we see what the issues are. This call is free. I give it for an hour and we go over everything that's on the IEP, your concerns, how things are going, and then we develop a plan for the next 30 to 60 days for you to do on what to do to help your child to get the IEP better and to get the help that your child needs in the school district. So if they would like to set up a free call, they can just go to special education.
All right. Well, thank you
Thank you
guys
so much.
and see you guys next episode. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Hi, I'm Doug Katz, inventor of the Nulu kitchen knife. The Nulu is uniquely shaped to work in harmony with the human body, greatly reducing the strain on muscles and joints common with traditional knives. Not only is the Nulu ergonomic, it's incredibly versatile. This knife is the kitchen MVP. Visit us at nuluknives.com. That's Nulu knives.com to see this extraordinary knife in action and understand why we say Nulu is the knife that adapts to you.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the show. Remember to follow the show and our guests on social media and subscribe. Be sure to hit the bell so you'll get notified when we upload new episodes. See you next time.